Hi, and welcome to My Story. This is a beautiful talk show where we bring people from different walks of life. And today we have an esteemed guest with us, Liben Tom and his beloved wife Silviya joining us. Liben is one of the top drummers in India, in the gospel industry especially. And this is going to be an exciting time of conversation from his life journey. Got a lot of questions with me today. All right, Liben, how are you feeling?
So I'm a little nervous, but I thank God for this opportunity. Firstly, I thank Pastor Shine and City Harvest and AB Anna for doing this with me. It's a great feeling. Thank you.
All right, your first question I would like to ask, could you share a brief introduction on your journey as a drummer and how you developed this passion?
So, as a kid, grew up in a middle class family, which had this passionate, kid who was always crazy about drums and was not an easy journey. But thankful to God that I was born in a Christian family, which went to a Pentecostal church, which had drum, not the acoustic drum, but the smaller drum. Yeah, we started off with that, but eventually the church upgraded to have a very good drum kit. We were one of those churches which had really good drums, and then we had very good musicians in the church, which eventually, um, you know, I got my all my learning. My initial phase of learning was from church. That's where I started, and uh, and the very fact that drums being such a good-looking instrument was the main reason that
That's not fair.
I fell in love with drums, and I thought that's my instrument.
All right, yeah, I totally agree with the certain points, but not. So, what was your childhood like when you realized that drumming was your true calling?
I don't know if drumming was my true calling, but like I said, God was really gracious. As a kid, I used to go to multiple church prayer meetings just so that I could see the drum kit in the church.
Wow.
And when my parents used to approach me asking, "We're going for a prayer meeting. You have to join us." The first question I would ask them is, "The church has a drum kit?" And they'll be like, "We don't know. We'll have to go check." And and I always wanted to be there before the praise and worship started because I wanted to see the drummer play the drums. Um, and I think that is where I fell in love with this instrument. Just watching people play was very fascinating for me, and and I can't believe I'm doing this full time, professional. It's really God, uh, you know, being faithful to
Mm,
my dreams,
absolutely, yeah.
and that's what it is. Like
Oh, out of all musical instruments, what drew you specifically to drumming?
like I said, the way it looks back in the days, there were no like big brands like
Correct.
Pearl,
Yeah.
Tama in India at least, but we had this Calcutta made drums called
So they,
Chaudhry. Those
nobody
kids,
forgets that.
yeah, those kids were like really, uh, flashy kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had so much glitter, like black with glitter, red with glitter, um, and just the way the drum looked, and they used to come in like 8 pieces and ten
Yeah.
pieces and all of that. So you'll have like toms all
Four,
over.
five toms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the fact that a drummer, one guy sitting and playing that one instrument was like, wow, that's so cool, right?
Yeah.
That was the main reason I fell for drums, and also the fact that mm, drums is the foundation to any music, be it any genre, any setting that you're looking at. Rhythm plays such an important role. That's another reason why I fell in love with this instrument.
Wow, that's very true. I think drums is one of the foundations, right? It keeps the tempo, keeps us together as a band and on click. Let's not forget that. Could you describe what your practice routine typically looks like, both in your younger years and now as an established musician?
Okay, let me start off with my younger days. I didn't have a drum kit. I had a practice pad. So the practice pad was made up of PVC pipes
Oh.
and wooden logs which had like rubber pads on it. So it was in a structure of a drum kit, but not a drum kit. Like
Mm.
basic um, practice pads. That's what we call it as, with a single pedal and not even a branded pedal. That was some Indian make pedal, but I'm grateful for that because most of my learning was on that. I think uh, my practice routine back then was learning the songs that I was supposed to play at church, and
Oh.
church was the only place I could play back then.
Wow.
So learn the songs, make sure that you play to the song.
Mm.
That was my starting. Um, and yeah, mainly it was like playing to the song, make sure that you don't rush, you don't, of course, as a kid, when you're playing, you are going to rush. There's no click, there's no produced track back then. It's just everybody is following the drummer. So it was very important to hold the groove tight. If you don't hold the groove tight, you can see the whole church members and the band looking at you like okay, what just happened? So my basic practice routine back in the days was just learn the song. But now it is very different. I play to a click, and most of the time, I spend a lot of time to the playing to the click.
Mm.
That's the most important. Basically, metronome or metronome app is available everywhere, and you can download it for free, and then play to the click. That's one thing I do. Another thing I do is I play to tracks that doesn't have drums in it, like basically drumless track. That's another important thing that I do. And not just stick to 4/4. I
Makes you more
explore.
creative. Yeah. The
Yeah, I
different time
explore
signatures. And,
different time signature. That's
yeah.
5/4, 7/4,
Beautiful.
and that really expands your vocabulary. Like when
Yeah.
you're playing and when you're if suppose you are on a live setting and you're thrown a jam at you, you know where to go
Yeah.
with whatever it is. So that's what I do. Mostly it is playing to drumless track, playing different time signature, and playing to the click, and then of course heading to what the gig wants,
Yeah.
learning the parts of
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
the song, where the stops are, where the starts is, where you have to shine, where you have to not shine, where you have to just play the groove. That's my practice schedule.
So, Libin, one section I think you mentioned that you used to practice on a practice pad, like a wooden part of it, and how different it was when you went sat on a drum kit. Like, there's a complete different setting,
Oh,
isn't it, for you?
that's
Right?
it's like night and day difference.
Yeah, because
Big,
nowadays kids have everything in their homes
yeah, I
and they
know.
don't practice,
Yeah,
right? We didn't have anything, right? Not to
yeah,
forget that God is blessed right now, but
yes,
so to get from a completely a raw setting to actually feel the kit,
yeah,
right? It's like a toy and an actual
yeah.
instrument in your hand.
Can you imagine like every single hit that I played on the kick and the snare? I thought it sounded like a snare. I thought it
Yeah.
sounded like a kick.
Mm.
And that was the kind of things that was running in my head every time I practice on a practice pad. And also the feel that you get on a practice pad, like the rebound is very easy. Like
Yes.
especially when you're playing kick drum, the rebound on a practice pad is easier. But when it comes to a real acoustic kit, it's very different.
Mm.
Sometimes what you're playing on a practice pad, when you translate it, the same velocity, if you're playing it on an acoustic kit,
You
it's
cannot.
totally
Yeah.
different. You're like, um, you might not sound as loud as how you're sounding on a practice kit. It's very different when you play on an acoustic kit. But again, that came through that there was always a difference when you play on a practice pad and then come on a real acoustic kit. It's
Yeah.
it's a different feel altogether. But over the years, playing at church, Sunday after Sunday, Sunday after Sunday, it got better.
Beautiful. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Yes. Many individuals see music as a passion but hesitate to pursue it as a career, right? So, what inspired you to choose music as your profession?
So this is a tough question. Honestly, I struggled with this being a drummer full time. I never thought I would be doing drumming professionally because every time I wanted to play drums professionally full time, I was never encouraged to do that because, of course, I'm coming from a family which wants me to have a regular job. A traditional job
We all.
is always preferred than that of a freelance job.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like my parents are like, no, 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 you can't do this. What are you gonna like make out of playing drums? Like, are you gonna like earn something?
Yeah.
Because that was the fact. Initially, I was not getting paid. There are days when I pushed my bike back home without fuel,
Wow.
and I didn't have money to fuel because I used to go for jams all the way with the bike and come back uh, home sometimes without
Reality.
without fuel. That's how broke I was, and practically being a drummer is like really hard. Either you need to be rich or you need to be extremely good. For me, it was grace, like God's gift.
Amen.
I can only tell. I'm not trying to um, put myself down, but I really want to put the reality out there.
Yeah.
Like anybody who comes and asks me, it's a gift from God, and I've not seen um, anybody in my family being part of music, like my father or my mother or anybody else being part of music. But this was a gift that I desired for, and God blessed me with. So um, yeah, of course, the fact that traditional jobs are preferred over like a
Any
music
art
or a
form. Yeah.
full-time music job
Mm.
is one reason people give up. And the fact that you are looked down as a
Mm.
musician, it's like if suppose I go for a family gathering and people ask, what do you do? And I say I do music. What is that? Like, what do you do in music? Like, I tell I play the drums. And they're like, okay, all that is fine. How will you get married? Like, which dad is gonna give you her daughter?
The heat, son.
So so I'll be like, I'll just smile. I mean, it's
Mm.
embarrassing. I don't have answers to it,
Yeah.
but
Definitely.
I
Yeah.
can say God is faithful. I have the most beautiful wife,
Absolutely. Yeah.
um, and that is a blessing,
Yeah.
and that is God's blessing in my life.
Yeah.
Uh, sh- um, and that too, being a drummer, getting a wife who's a dentist, a doctor,
Yes.
is really something that I didn't dream about,
Mm.
but it's God's giving. Um, yeah, that is one more thing.
Not to forget, most of musicians don't know that Liben is an MBA graduate. Yeah, he's not just a graduate; he's an MBA graduate, and he worked. In fact, he worked in MNCs for a while. Could you just throw some light over that?
Yeah, so the reason I did my MBA was I worked after my degree. I worked for 8 months with an MNC, uh, and it was really difficult because it was an evening shift. I used to go by 4 and come back home 4 p.m. and I used to come back home by 4 a.m. So when I come back home, all I do is catch up on my sleep, and then the
Mm.
next day I'm back to work. So I did that for 8 months, and uh, I realized that my drumming is going, down. And then I was like, you know what? To compensate this, the best thing I can do is student life is the best life. So I chose to do MBA,
Oh,
which happened to be a blessing again.
yes. Yeah.
I finished my MBA, and I finished MBA in digital marketing.
Hello.
Um,
Mm.
Not just pass, but I finished it with a first class distinction,
Please
uh,
make a note.
which
All musicians.
eventually was a pressure from my parents that you need to work because
Yeah.
since you
Yeah.
passed out well, you need to work. But I asked them for like 1 year's time to do music full time.
Yeah.
And they told, okay, try it. And it was difficult. I didn't get the break. But when I was giving up, God showed up.
Yeah.
God showed up in style, telling, this is what I have for you. And had the biggest break. and whatever I have today is because of the gig that I have and whatever I've earned through and invested, and I'm getting it back.
Yeah, to just to add a quick footnote to it, as Libin is mentioning about education part of it, right? Every musician who's aspiring to be a good musician, a great musician down the lane, you need to have a basic degree, guys. It's important, right? I understand sometimes we don't have a good family situation to do it. That's a different scenario. Most of us, it's very easy to get yourself educated
Yeah.
now. And there's so many courses, online courses available. I would say don't neglect it, isn't it?
Yes,
Libin?
like a lot of parents come up to me, young kids who finish their 10th, 12th, they're like, uh, please tell my son, you know, to concentrate on studies because he just wants to concentrate on drums. He doesn't realize the reality of this, of what he's doing. The fact that the market is competitive,
Yeah.
there's so many drummers out there.
Mm.
The fact that, you know it's not an easy job. You need to be consistently practicing, and uh, so you always need a backup. That is one thing.
Yeah.
Like even during COVID, it was uh, you know uh, a real question mark, as in, like, what am I going to do next? Because there's no live gigs, there's no shows. The full world is shut down, and I was like, what next? Yeah, thankfully I had the MBA degree. It's not like I worked um, something related to MBA, but eventually I could invest with the money that I saved into a recording setup and have recordings come in and take classes, crash courses, and all of that, which eventually helped. But I would suggest young drummers, please concentrate on your studies, have a good degree.
Yes. Yeah.
If you can do a PhD, do it, because even I'm planning to do one soon.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Even I didn't know about that.
But yeah, I mean, it's always good. Like, you're a drummer, but you
Yeah.
can also be a PhD holder. You can be a scholar, and that always comes in advantage to you.
Wow. You have to give me in full form of PhD at the end. I'm just pulling you. So, in your experience, what are some of the common mistakes or pitfalls aspiring drummers should avoid?
Okay, so the common mistakes that drummers face is not practicing to a metronome. The most basic work of a drummer is holding the band together.
Yeah.
And if you're running yourself,
Mm.
the band can't, uh, follow you, because I've read this quote somewhere that a band is as good as the drummer, because if the drummer is not tight,
Yeah.
if you're not playing to the click, I feel like um, the whole band is struggling because of you. So make sure you practice to click. Second thing is be open to feedback. If
Yeah.
people come to you and tell, you know what, you didn't play well today,
Mm-mm-mm.
you need to concentrate on this, that. Make sure you take it the right way. Don't let your ego come in between telling that, whoa, who's this guy to tell me how I should play? Please make sure you take feedbacks from people. Even if people don't come and talk to you or tell, you can ask. I even do this even now, like right after the Sunday service, I ask the bandmates, how was it? Was it okay?
Mm.
And if they tell, bro, I think you missed something here, there, that won't affect my ego. I'll make sure the second service I'll play it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you look. You need to be open to feedbacks. You need to be open to learning. However big you grow, learning is one thing that you will not stop
Yeah.
from. I know. I'm pretty sure you know it,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
every day is a learning
Curve,
curve.
yeah.
So that is one. Another thing is, um, don't build a lifestyle before you are settled. The thing is, I see people these days, when they play a gig, they're busy buying the coolest sneakers available or the coolest
Widgets.
gadgets that can be used. That's not going to give you your next gig.
Yeah.
Please invest on equipments, invest on a good pair of pedals, a good snare,
Mm.
that eventually will translate who you are on
Yeah.
stage, you know.
Your tone is important
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
exactly. Like how a good guitar
Yeah.
investment always comes back to you, you
Makes
know.
sense.
The same way, invest on good equipments. When you have a lot of money, please invest on more, because uh, I am in this process where I'm buying gears back to back so that I can get the right sound. So please have the right lifestyle. Invest on equipments.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, drumming is expensive.
Mm.
Save up your money, buy,
Save, yes, very
save
important.
up your money, buy the equipments that you can, and make sure that will, you know, give you more gigs, more
Yeah.
money. And something that I want to say, I want to tell from my experience is, uh, I didn't save initially. That's why I'm telling, like, for the upcoming drummers, I used to splurge my money on lifestyle because I didn't have it when I
Mm.
was young.
Yeah.
So I think I regret it a little bit, because if I started saving way earlier, I think I would have been somewhere else if I concentrated on. But God is faithful again. Like, He was gracious enough to give me enough gigs so that I could build whatever I could do. But initially, if you could save and invest on the right things, it'll pay back.
Yeah.
That is one more thing.
Beautiful. Financial aspect is very important for every musician, I feel. Like, music is good. You have a good fund coming in through your music. If we don't save, right, as Levin mentioned, right, they always say money saved is money earned, right? So if you don't do it right way, I think down the lane, I've noticed a lot of us get into credit cards, EMIs, and finally it becomes a huge backlog. And it's like you're pushing yourself to do more gigs, right? You don't have to see, you need to work smart. You don't have to work hard when you have already reached a certain level, right? So now, as Libin mentioned, you have to invest on gears, provided check your skills. Check your skills. You have grown. Yes, I need this equipment right now. And see, save it up 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, even if it's going to take a year, don't worry about it, right? So I think that's a great advice. Thank you, Libin. That's beautiful for every musician, not just a drummer, how wise we need to be in terms of our lifestyle. One more question, Libin, on drummers often face the temptation to play excessively or when it's not necessary. How do you navigate this balance between showcasing your skills and serving the music? It's a general question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Need not be a
So
church setting.
yeah,
Yeah.
uh, overplaying is always a trouble, you
Yeah.
know. I remember once I was offered a gig, and I couldn't take it up because I was already committed to another gig. And there's another drummer who came and filled in for me for this gig. And I was like, okay, this guy is gonna get the gig because this is it, because
Mm.
he's one of the best. And then I heard the same guy calling me again for the gig. So I was like, okay, I'm surprised why he didn't get the gig and I'm getting the gig. So I learned my parts. I had to learn over 30 songs over 2 days time. I knew that this is going to be my investment if I work hard. And I worked for like 12, 13 hours, learned up the set, 30 songs, and went for the gig. I nailed it. I
Oh.
did what the job required. I just played to the T, and then came back. Eventually, I got the job.
Mm.
So
Makes sense.
several months later, I asked why me
Mm.
and why didn't the other drummer get the
Drummers,
job?
yeah.
And the answer was, we just wanted something basic. And when he came in, it was more like a drum solo. Like
Mm. Yeah.
he overplayed. The songs that require a groove, you can't chop.
Yeah.
The songs that require dynamics, you can't just thrash the cymbals. You just need to be very sensitive when you're playing, and especially if you're talking about a professional setting, it's either you get the gig or you don't get the gig.
Yeah.
But when it's a church, you should be more careful because you're playing for God. And I
Wow.
feel uh, there's nobody bigger than God here.
Mm.
Like, when you're giving God the best, I think you should be very sensitive, because Um, the way you play matters. Don't overplay, because you are leading the congregation into worship.
Yeah.
And if you are going to be an hindrance for the congregation and the worship leader, um, that's really going to affect the whole atmosphere. It's
Absolutely.
very, very important to, um, just the basic thing is don't overplay. Second thing is learn the song.
Learn the songs. Yeah.
Learn the song to the
Seriously.
T, like know where your stops are, know where your starts are, and then play to a click. Even though you don't have a band that is having a click track, uh, or a situation in church where there's no click track, make sure you hold the church, the band
Banding
together.
together.
And the third thing, and the fourth thing is, um, be consistent in practicing.
Mm.
Just because you don't get a gig, don't be like, okay, when I get a gig, I will practice. No, don't wait for that. Make sure every day you show up
Yeah.
practicing. Consistency is the key. Like I tell, you need to practice every day, and then a gig comes to you suddenly, you can just nail it because you've been
Your
practicing.
muscle memory is already strong. Yeah.
Yes,
By the time. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and learn how to read notation. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I learned by ear. Uh,
You play by faith, not by sight.
yeah, that's something I can apply in my life. But on a long run, it's a little stressful. The I think last month I had a recording session where I had to finish 21 songs in 6 days.
Yeah.
6 or 7 days. It was
Oh, yeah. I
no,
remember
actually
seeing.
6 days,
Yes.
21 songs. So I had to learn the parts, nail my drumming, and also finish it in like 6 days, because there were three different music producers that was walking into the studio and going out.
Yeah.
So everything was scheduled.
Yeah.
And I at that point thought, I wish I knew how to write, because it was easier for me to see the notes and play the
Play
drums.
drums. Yeah.
But don't let that be a support system where even when you're playing live, don't get just stuck to a note.
Yeah.
You always need to be creative. But this comes in handy. Notations always
It's the
comes in
literacy
handy,
part of it. Yeah.
which I am learning right now. I'm learning under a friend of mine
Yeah.
who's teaching me how to read notation. Like I told, every day is a learning process.
Oh, that's
So
so
it's
beautiful.
yeah, it's very
See,
important to
learning
learn.
doesn't stop. No, isn't that so beautiful that you mentioned even at this stage of time, like you're
Yeah,
already an established drummer, not to
yeah,
forget that.
yeah,
You're still willing to learn, like stooping yourself and coming as a student to learn.
yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? I think has to
That's
be applauded. I'm applauding in my head already.
that's and I'm learning the basics, like
Right.
what is a hi hat, what is a snare, what is
Yeah.
that's what starts off. You start off with the basics. Don't forget your basics,
Yeah.
guys. Like always remember where you started,
Yeah.
however big you grow.
Yeah. See, as Liben is mentioning, music is a language. It's like how you communicate, right? It's very important.
Yeah,
And it's also an art form. Yeah. Just because you do sight reading doesn't mean you're a musician, right? I've noticed sight reading is a very important tool in terms of learning music, but have a balance that your ear is strong because your ear is the greatest reference that God has given you,
yeah,
right? So there was no Royal School of Music, there was no Trinity School of Music when David was there, right? There was nothing for the angel Gabriel or Lucifer. Nobody had anything, right? Music was designed by God. We all understand that. But when there's an opportunity for you to learn the sight reading, go ahead and do it. But don't limit yourself, as Liban is mentioning. Don't stick to only that, right? Be creative. God has given us wonderful skills in us to be creative, to be you don't have to be somebody else, right? So when you see a notation part of it, play that, but see how best you can give your idea to it. So that's where your creative form comes in, isn't it? That's where
yeah,
you communicate more effectively and more fluently. Otherwise it's just you're just reading something and just copying and vomiting what we did during our chemistry in 10th standard, 8th standard, 9th standard. I don't know, that's my time. Yeah, all my chemistry, I'll tell you what I know is during our COVID time, right?
yeah,
We went through all the sanitizer bottles, what ethanol, methanol. I was just saying. That's when I'm really realizing what we actually studied way back in 8th and 9th standard, right?
yeah,
So I'm just throwing some light to understand that literacy point is important in terms, but not to forget it is a creative industry. Music is a creative industry. If you cannot create or comp, if you're not a good composer in terms of your mind, you cannot do it, then you're stuck to only a part of it. Then people won't hire you. Now, if you see why the people hired Livin is the reason that he can create, not just that he understands what is needed for the song. Sometimes you may not have notation, isn't it? Not
Yes.
every time everybody
Yes.
gives notation, right? There are settings when you walk inside a studio, they might just hum the tune to you. Right? There are so many several musicians. I want to quote probably Keba Jeremiah has mentioned so many times to me. That times they will just play the tune in the keyboard, and you should be able to replicate it. You can't be saying give me insight reading notations. Yeah, that's the skill sometimes producers need. Probably the producer is not a guy who writes the notation, but there are extreme ends where the producers are guys who does symphony. So
Mm.
have a balance over that so that it becomes a great form of music for you. Could you provide some examples of exemplary drumming as well as instance where what you might perceive as a subpar drumming?
So when it comes to exemplary drumming, I think it's playing with dynamics and serving the song, like I told last. Um, and also, you need to know where you need to put your gospel chops. Since you're in church, that doesn't mean you can just keep chopping throughout the song. Sometimes that might throw off the worship leader, it might throw off the band itself. So, for example, if you look at the song Glorious, and if you look at Chris Coleman being one of the best out there, um, if you look at Glorious, until the last part, he's playing the groove and holding the band together. But at the end, you see him go all out.
Yeah.
When it's your time to showcase, that's when you need to go all out. Otherwise, do your job. Yeah. So I feel like that's very, very important, even if it's a pro gig or a church gig or even a cafe gig. It's very important to do that. Don't overplay. So that is one example of exemplary drumming. And another example is being versatile, not sticking to one genre. Like as kids grow up, even I was one among them, I was so much into metal drumming. And it was all about double bass, double bass, double bass, double bass. But eventually I figured out double bass is only like 10% of your drumming. It's very important to have groove, you know have like basics. Like the more groovier you are, the
There's
more
more
people,
life.
yeah, the more people would like to jam with you.
Yeah.
Because if you're all about soloing, then people will be like, okay, he's a solo drummer, he's not a band player, he's
Yeah.
a solo guy. So it's very important to um, you know play when it's required to play, and not play when it's not required. And for a suburb drumming, I think somebody who doesn't have dynamics, like there's no, like if you look at a wave form when you're recording, initially when you're recording yourself, you can see that during the verse, the drum is not loud enough. But when you go to a chorus, it's louder, and when you go to a bridge, it's really building the song. So it's like a wave, so it's very important to play with dynamics. That is, when you don't have dynamics, that is a very bad this thing. And not playing to the click again,
Yeah.
and also overplaying is one. um, I will be playing to show you guys what I'm talking to the same song, how to play and how not to play. What is mediocre drumming? What is perfect drumming? Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Libin. Here comes a toughie, right? Drummer and dentist. Yeah. Given the demanding nature of being a musician, especially one who travels frequently, which we all know, how do you manage your family life? You can take your time,
Ah,
all your time. I'm relaxed.
that's difficult. It's almost been 2 years since not two, almost two. But it really feels like more than that. Uh, but putting all together, I think I've been with my wife for like a year, because I travel that frequently.
Mm.
Uh, it's a tough job. It's not easy. People look at you and you're like, oh, wow, you're flying tomorrow. You're in that place. You're in this place. But you don't realize you have somebody waiting at home, and
Yeah.
it's a tough life, like to leave your spouse behind and just travel. Sometimes you want to take your spouse, but you know, financially it's gonna be like taxing.
Mm.
Second thing is, maybe it's a private gig, you can't take
Bring it. Yeah.
you can't bring your wife along with you. So it's a very difficult uh, career when it comes to like choosing gigs or your wife's birthday or your anniversary, or
Ooh.
all of that is like a little sensitive topic. But I think the best way to make it up is when you come back, come
Make a
with
note. Make a note.
come back with some goodies for your wife. And when you are back home,
Yeah.
spend enough time. That I don't do. I'm sorry. I still go into practice recording,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
thank you for being honest. That's yeah.
I'm back to the room trying to edit my videos and all of that.
Yeah.
So there are times when my wife is like, "You look at the phone more than myself." So there are days like that.
Yeah.
Before she starts talking, I just want to tell everything so that it'll
He's
be
finishing
easier.
all the bits of
Yeah.
his.
So I think the way I balance this is take her out for a date.
Yeah.
Go for a walk. We work out together in the gym.
Wonderful. Yeah.
These are the things we do to build our uh, bond again. And also,
Pray together.
if of course we pray together, that is
Yes.
every day.
Yeah.
And another thing is, if I can drag her along for an international show, I do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's something that I make up for. It's expensive,
Yeah.
but I make up for it because I feel money can come back, but memories can't. So.
Cringe. So Sylvia, I'm going to give some rest for Liben.
Yeah.
So a professional dentist, being in relationship with a musician often involves attending concerts and performance. So how do you balance attending these events while managing other aspects of life?
To be honest, I haven't gone for many of his shows because all of his shows are private. So
Oops.
I have attended maybe like 2 or 3
Three. Yeah.
shows.
Okay.
And like when we got married and it was only a month, that time it was hard. Like after, like we were only married for a month and he started working and traveling. Yeah, that was a part like I used to feel very frustrated because I'm home, not doing anything alone. And I felt like it doesn't feel like I'm married. Even my friends say like, doesn't feel like you're married. It feels like you're dating. Like he's not at home, you're here, and he's there somewhere. So yeah, it's all about balancing. And then yeah, as he said, he compensates for whatever time he's not there at home. So yeah, and also I started working, so
Yes, that
it
kind of
just
keeps you busy.
keeps me busy. Yeah.
Thank you for keeping it real. Thank you. So, what does music play in your relationship, like both in terms of Libin's professional pursuits and your personal connection?
Music plays a double role in our life. Actually, professionally, it's
And not to forget that you're a guitarist as well. Many of them don't know she plays guitar.
yeah, a little
Yes.
bit. Yeah, I'm not as professional as Livin is. So yeah, I'm very like scared or embarrassed to play in front of him or even sing.
Like I tell guys, practice makes you perfect. You don't just fall out being an expert. Please, I tell this to my wife every single day. Like, just because I do this professionally, that doesn't mean she can't
Yeah.
be learning each day. Each day is a learning, guys. Don't give up. Just because you're not good, it takes time.
Yeah,
Have you ever sang a song for him? Has he
I
ever?
did when we were in our courtship period. Yeah, I did.
You never told me this. All right, that's okay. We'll take it offline. Yeah.
So professionally, for Libin, it's a creative space,
Yeah.
and where he can connect with people. Music is somewhere like he can connect with people. And personally, music helps us to enhance our bond and relationship
Yeah.
by listening to our favorite songs and going. for concerts together internationally
Wow,
also.
that's nice.
And also the most important part, music or songs or any lyrics helps us to build our relationship with God
Wow.
together. So there are times when we both would be feeling low, and I think God talks to Liben through music and songs.
Oh,
That's
it's big time. There are times when we go through a situation and there'll be this tune that is, ringing in my head, and I'll be like, why this song now? And I eventually don't stop myself from listening to it. I just make sure I play it. And when I play it, I know that song was inspired by God, because the lyrics at that situation would talk to both of our
yeah.
situation at that time. And it was so important to let go let God talk to you through any form. So for music, is like songs are one of the places where, like, we could really see God talk to
Really?
us.
Wow.
That's one way we bond. And even during our courtship period, there were times when Silviya was feeling low, and I'm reminded of this song, and then, when I tell her and she is listening to it, she just like starts tearing up, because when God speaks, it's just perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Even if it's a song, or even if it's a verse that you read from the Bible, or even if it's your promise word, you know, God, when He speaks, it's just accurate. Yeah, that is one bond we have together.
That's a beautiful thing. It's the perfect bond, I would say. How you can relate to God through music, and music becomes a medium, not the source. And the lyrics which are taken from the word kind of builds and brings peace in us. That's so beautiful, isn't it? I think that also brings to a point that, see, as being married, our worship together, it's also important. Personal worship, yes, is important for sure. But when you worship together with your spouse, musicians especially, you create a bond. Sometimes I've noticed musicians who get married to non-musicians, right? Yeah, the girl or the boy will have no clue about music, right? But still, I see a strong bond when they worship together. So there's one connection that God brings, that harmony happens in that. Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. That is beautiful. Thank you for adding on to that, Libin. Can you share a memorable experience or a moment you had, a fan moment or something, I don't know, together related to Libin's drumming career?
To be honest, when I came to know about Libin, I didn't know he's a famous drummer because I was not into music.
Ooh.
I'm not famous, guys.
He doesn't like to call himself celebrity or famous, but when this proposal came, I didn't know he's a drummer. I just know like he's just a friend. And one fine day, my brother asked me like, "Do you know Liben Tom?" I was like, "Yeah, he's my friend." He's like, "Liben Tom is your friend?" I was like, "Yeah." So that's the point when I came to know like he's just not a normal drummer. He's
Yeah.
someone big out there. So so as I started listening to his music, I think I'm the biggest fan. And also so one plus partnership or collaboration, that was one achievement that we were together.
That happened during COVID,
Yeah.
and there was a friend of mine who connected me to OnePlus, and they wanted to do a campaign with me. So I had the privilege to do that.
Wow.
That was something we shared together, and when
Yeah.
I told her, she was very happy. And there are so many glory moments we've had together,
Yeah.
like releasing songs, and
Yeah.
being part of big gospel songs.
Yeah.
I never really even dreamt of being part of all of this, but God was faithful at the
Really.
right
Yeah.
time. God just opened up opportunities, not just in the south, but in the north. In every way, I was part of the gospel
Yeah.
songs that was out, and I'm glad I could play a small role in this big, massive,
Yeah.
industry of
Wonderful.
serving God, and I thank God for that.
Yeah, I appreciate him playing secular music, but for me, when he plays the gospel music, I think like that fangirl comes out
Oh
more.
wow.
I love to hear the gospel music he has played for.
Salvation experiences.
So yeah,
That's good.
like
Yeah. I think that's good. See, the experience are different every time. Yeah. And sometimes when you really connect to God, you see your spouse in a different aspect and you want him to be there more. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Okay. Few quick questions, Libin, before we close this. Could you describe your salvation experience? How important is prayer for you and how do you practice it?
So for me, I need to have my daily devotions. That is after I wake up, after my breakfast. I am I'm just out to my studio. Um, my wife, every time I take the studio key, she just looks at me and is like, "Oh, you're going?"
Here comes
I'll be like, "Yes, I am going."
the isolation.
So the first thing I do is I just go to my studio and I close the doors and I'm on my knees
Yeah.
asking God for grace. And I think even before Silviya could come, even before I got the studio or anything, I used to have my personal devotion, personal time with God. And I feel that is what is the reason for so many things that people don't see. They only see the best of you, right? You don't see the struggles that you're going through. There are days when I've struggled, like questioning my own career, like,
Mm,
is this what God
yeah.
wants me to do? I wish I could collaborate with somebody big. I could do this, I could do that. I think every connection for me came from God.
Wow.
That's because I used to spend time with God, reading His Word, and also like spending time with God. I don't want to sound cliche, but the more time you spend with God, I think the bigger opportunity comes your way. Um, I know a lot of my friends who don't believe in God might be like, "What is this guy talking?" But um, the very fact that I know this guy who doesn't believe in God is because of God.
Mm,
Um, I am in touch with this guy who doesn't believe in God is
mm,
because of the connection that God gave me. So it's very important to spend time with God. Read a plan. What I do is I always follow the U version plan. I make sure that we both read it together. If
beautiful.
there's
Yeah.
a plan that we can read it together, we read it. If there's a plan that if there's something that I struggle with, maybe if it is ego,
Mm,
I go and read a plan on ego, the ways that I can improve on or short tempered or being angry or whatever it is, whatever you're struggling with. It's important to uh, be honest with God.
yeah.
Like there are times when we just go sit and pray and we'll be like, God, you know what? Um, I thank you for who you are. Thank you for everything you've done. But you don't say the struggles that you're going through.
Mm-mm.
You should be open with God. You need to be honest because God already knows it. He
Yeah.
wants you to
Spell
tell,
it out. Yeah.
yeah, what you're struggling with. And there, I see my biggest breakthroughs when I do that.
Mm,
The days when I just break down and I tell God, I struggle with this. This is what I'm struggling with. I really need a breakthrough. Can you help me out with this? And I see God working.
wow.
And the more you humble yourself, the greater God lifts you up. Something that I would like to say is I just finished my bachelor degree, and then I had one of the biggest bands from Bangalore asking me to audition for them, and I went ahead, took up the gig, and then I was very happy. Endorsement came in, gigs came in, flying, touring, everything came in. Everything that I dreamt as a young guy came
Yeah.
in that package. But then that day, when I went back and I read the devotion, that is, verse of the day was humble yourself in due time, I will lift you up.
Lift you up. Beautiful.
Okay. And then I was like, God, I humbled myself so long. Thank you for giving me this break. I told and I let it go. I mean, I interpreted the verse the way I wanted it
Wanted.
because
Yeah.
this was the break I
Yeah.
wanted. But I also used to read Bible from Matthew to Revelation. So I was in the process of reading Matthew, and that day's reading passage was exactly First Peter 5:7.
Oh,
And basically, First Peter 5 was my reading passage, and when I read that again, it's saying the same verse as I was reading from the first verse. I reached to the same verse, humble yourself, and I was like, okay, I think God wants to talk
speaks.
something to me about this. And then eventually, a pastor came home and he was praying and he prophesied and he told, you know what, whatever that opportunity that you've got, that's not for you.
Oh,
You
wow.
shouldn't take it up. It
Mm-mm-mm.
was very hard for me to say no to it, but I took the step of faith of saying no. um, I was struggling. I just wish I got that gig, but God had better plans. When I gave up something big like this at that age, I had to wait out. That's when I finished my MBA, and I finished my MBA, and I got the biggest break. And whatever I have today, and the endorsements that has come through, like
Yes.
to be a part of Zildjian company is something
Great,
massive.
massive. Yes.
Like, and there are only people, like, only some 20 to 25 drummers from India as part of Zildjian company. And for me to be part of it, I wanted to sign up with something smaller. And the band that came to me, they offered a smaller endorsement.
Mm-mm.
But what I got after waiting and what God gave
Bigger
me
picture.
was
Yeah.
the best.
Massive. Yeah.
Not that's something that I see, like, in every aspect. Like, if it is to wait for a wife, if it is to wait for the endorsement,
Yeah.
if it is to wait for the best band, your dream gig. When I had a consistent relationship with God, God showed up in style. And whatever I see, or whatever you guys think, I'm highly favored, it's only because of God. And it is God's gift in my life.
Wow.
Yeah,
Praise God.
that's my salvation story. I mean,
Uh,
literally from nothing. I didn't have money to buy sticks when I did my first gig. So I remember going for this competitions, inter-college competition without a drumsticks head,
head over.
because I had broken sticks. I didn't
Flat
have
ones. Yeah.
a drumstick. But yeah, I mean, I was quite embarrassed to play that gig.
Yeah.
But that's how I started. And to where I am today is definitely God
God.
and
Yeah.
nothing else.
Wow.
Favor of
Humble
God.
yourself in due
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Humble yourself, in due time, God will lift you up.
Wonderful. I
That's
think that
one thing.
scripture is just pointing out for me right now. It's just sparkling in my head. A mighty amen to your testimony and your salvation experience, Libin. Thank you. I think it's really inspiring me as we are talking this. A very important question at this conversation. Churches have molded great musicians. Would you agree with this statement on personal basis? If yes, how?
Yes, for sure. Because I am a church made musician and I'm proud. I'll go to any secular place and tell I grew up in church,
Yeah.
and church is my biggest learning place.
Oh, yeah.
Because the kind of discipline you get being at church is something else.
Yeah.
Because when I grew up, my church didn't have like a monitor or a in-ear or a click track or anything of that sort. You just need to
See
look at the worship leader. That too not his face. You're looking at the backside, and you know the gestures that he's doing with his guitar or keyboard or whatever. That is what your learning is. Like,
Yeah.
when you have to build, when you have to break, when you have to
Yeah.
stop. And coming from a setting like that, which you didn't have anything, and then coming to a professional setting when you have everything, I think it's very easy to play that
Yeah.
gig.
Absolutely.
Because you're put in a place where you are like, um, you're like, you need to play whatever is given to you. Church is a place where there's spontaneous worship.
Yeah.
The worship leader might decide to just change the structure of the song. I mean, that's where you learn, right?
Yeah.
And when you are coming from a church, and if you look at any big drummer, forget the Indian market, but if you're
Yeah.
looking at any big drummer in the West or in the Europe, anywhere, um, you see the biggest of biggest artists comes from the church.
Yeah.
They grew up in church, they were disciplined in church, and they went out to the world. It was easy for them to ace it
Yeah.
because they were disciplined in church.
Yeah.
So church plays a big role. Never neglect your growth in church. Always give priority to church. When you're when you're given an opportunity to play at church, please learn your parts. That's where your biggest break is. When you learn your gig, when you learn your set, and when you know the song to the T, and when you learn it and come, and when you give God the glory, God lifts you up every other place.
Yeah, skillful worship, no? Very true.
Yes.
Yeah. As Libin is mentioning, just to take on a lighter note, playing in church, certain church settings, not all church, I would say. Sometimes like Indian traffic, no? You have to expect, even if it's a green signal or red signal, people are still walking, jaywalking, people are crossing, the cow is crossing, everybody's got a lane, right? But you expect, and somehow you navigate through and you reach home, right? So again, see, most of us are good drivers, as you're listening, most of us. But see, being on a church setting, especially, we should have that skill, right? Again, that doesn't come on with your sight reading there.
Yes,
Right, that's
exactly.
spontaneous playing, understanding the worship leaders. See, at least sometimes can see the instruments being on stage. The drummers, poor thing, they're isolated in the cage sometimes.
Yes, yes,
They're-
yes. Yeah.
you have to interpret certain things by gestures. Again, it comes as one in spirit, no? Being one in spirit. It comes with your personal prayer. Everybody's prayer life comes to a picture there. And we are one in spirit, and there's no ego, right? There's no competitive spirit. Who gets the highest volume and who's getting solo? I think, as you mentioned, complete humility is required to start yourself in the musical career, especially with the gospel industry. How can upcoming musicians train themselves for church worship?
Showing up on time, most important. Be punctual. When you're asked to come at 5 p.m., show up at 5 p.m.,
Yeah.
not 5:30 or 5:45, just because it's a church setting.
Or Chinese time, yeah.
Yes.
Indian
Yeah. Second thing is, it's important to learn your parts. Please, guys, if you can play for the world, if you can learn your set list and go, I think you can do much more for a God who owns this world, you know. So it's very important to learn your uh, parts well. Don't overplay, stick to the basics, because you're also a worshiper.
Well said.
In the
Yeah.
process of playing, you're also a worshiper. Just because you're on stage, that doesn't mean you have a special position. You know, it's important to be a worshiper before you be a drummer or a worship leader or whatever you call yourself. Um, and yep, practice every day.
Wow.
Persistent.
Persistent. Thank you. Another question which we already answered here and there, but probably can make it more stronger. How did family support you in your journey to become a musician, and were there any hindrances?
Definitely, there was hindrances. Um, my family, to an extent, initially they were not okay with me doing music. It was tough because they were like, "How is he getting a source of income?" And the second biggest burden they had is, "Who's gonna get married to me?
Yeah.
Like, how am I gonna support the family?" So. One thing is working hard,
Yeah, prove yourself. Yeah.
proving yourself. You might not get your biggest gig overnight,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
it might take 5 years for some, it might take a day for some, it might take a year for some. But being consistent, my parents, to an extent, after few years of knowing me doing music, they were okay with it. But of course, my relatives used to always like tickle my parents, asking, you know, you were letting your son do music, like,
It's typical Indian.
is he
Yeah.
okay doing music?
Yeah.
Like, who's gonna give him a girl that this?
Yeah.
So that pressure used to come on me, but. Uh, God is no man's debtor, guys. God is no man's debtor.
Amen. Yeah.
That's all I can say with so much confidence. That's because of God, wherever I am today.
Yeah.
The people who so-called looked at me telling, how are you going to like earn? How are
Survive.
you
Yeah.
going to do music? How are you going to survive? They really watch my videos. And I'm not talking about my drumming videos, but I'm talking about the worship series that I'm
Yeah.
part of. They played every day in their car. They played every day, every morning in their house. These are the ways God will work, you know.
Yeah.
Every time God shows up in style.
Absolutely.
And this is how He showed
Yeah.
up in style for me.
Yeah.
So it was difficult, but when you know God is with you, I think you can conquer any mountain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And That is my experience. Um, in the Indian society, always a traditional job is preferred over a musician's job.
Yeah.
But it's always good until you get a steady gig, have something as a backup.
Concrete in your hand. Yeah.
Everything, having something as a backup will always help you. And once you know you're going to do well, and when you know it's going to be consistent, that's when I think you need to
Yeah.
concentrate.
Powerful. Powerful. I know I burdened you with too many questions. Okay, the fun one. Last question. Okay. I'm going to ask that to Silvia. What is one thing people don't know about Mr. Liben Tom?
So one thing people he wishes knew about him is, and they don't know, is like he is an introvert, and
Oh.
he's an introvert, and only with like few people like you,
Yeah.
like he is like, yeah, he'll go all out and talk, even to his family relatives. He is an introvert. He's not a person. He would like to know people, like people to know this, that he's not a person who would like to initiate calls and call them and ask them. For them
Oh.
it is like, if I have a relationship with somebody
Yeah.
and I respect
Conversation.
them, I love them. For me, it's not like I have to call them every day or every week and ask them, "What are you doing? How are you?"
Yeah.
For me, like I know they are in my head, they are in my prayers, and like whenever I can talk to them, I'll talk. And for me, it's opposite. I talk to my family every day. So he he asked me like, "Why you
Don't look
talk
at
to your
me.
you talk to your sister every day, you talk to your brother every day and all that." But for him, it's different. I think we had a conversation also about it,
Yeah.
and he was
She
like,
keeps asking me,
"Yeah,
you don't talk to your own brother?
yeah."
Oh,
I'll
okay.
be like, I send him reels every other day. That's how we connect.
That's yeah,
Real life
reels
to
and
the
like
real life.
Yeah, I mean,
once in a month, twice in a month, he
people think I
yeah.
have a lot of attitude. People think I'm trying to keep um, a celebrity status. I hate that word celebrity because
Mm.
I am not a celebrity.
Mm.
I'm a very normal guy,
Mm.
and when people addresses me with that, I hate it.
Mm.
And and first thing is everybody works hard. For me, in our field, when you're not gigging,
Mm.
you're back home practicing or recording, or
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
stuck up with something or the other. You know, uh, it's not a normal life where you know, uh, morning you do this, evening you do this, afternoon you do this, and night you sleep. uh, our schedules are like all over the place. There are days when you don't get to sleep. There are days like 2 3 days when you don't get to sleep. So I think people should know that I'm not trying to be somebody who's like pricey, but my life and the schedules are crazy, that I don't get time to speak to everybody. Whatever I can do from my side, I do. um, yeah, so this is one thing that I'll work on. I will keep in touch with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
not. I don't think
I think
that's.
Sylvia is a great support in your vision. I think that's what I've seen.
Yeah.
Being busy
I
guys.
think she's talking on my behalf.
Yeah.
She's talking every day, so
All right.
that's fine.
Okay. One thing that you like about Sylvia.
One thing I like about her
Many
is
things, but I'm being very cautious in this question.
So,
she being patient
Wow.
and understanding. I think most of the time when you're in this field, uh, your partner doesn't trust you,
Yeah.
because you're traveling every single day.
Yeah.
You don't know like where your partner is, what you're doing.
Mm.
When she's not there physically, she's not there with me, or she can't get in touch with me.
True.
The fact that she trusts me blindly, and the fact that I know she's back home safe and I can trust her, I feel that's the most important thing for a touring musician, that being faithful to each other and trusting each other, knowing that wherever he is or wherever she is, um, they are mine and they're
Wow.
faithful.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is one thing I love about Silvia. She doesn't trust, she doesn't doubt me. The patience that she have and the understanding that we have is the reason for me to marry her also.
Wow. That's a great confidence for a man. It's an awe factor. Oh, the emoji is not there. Sorry. What All right, thank you, Sylvia, and thank you, Libin. It's been an honor. More than a musician, as a brother, as one family. I think most of you have enjoyed this conversation. Most of you would have a lot of doubts. You can definitely put your doubts in the comments. Keep it clean so that we'll be glad to answer. Libin will also take time to answer that. It'd be great. We can have a great conversation. I'm glad this video is going to help so many people, so many musicians and drummers. I remember that God has given skills for every single one of us, right? And we have to use our fullest potential. We can't give leftovers to God, as Libin mentioned. Being skillful, being productive in the kingdom of God, be a person who works hard, right? And give yourself your best. And whatever you're passionate about will become a profession in a certain time. It takes its own time. And I believe if you're passionate about music, if you're passionate about becoming a drummer, or any part of the instrument that you like to specialize on, that's a great example for you. Liben mentioned hard work, your patience to hold on till you wait the right gig and to establish yourself and never run behind two things he mentioned. He never ran behind endorsements, fame, two things, right? People all run behind endorsements, run behind fame, behind money. I think all of these will follow when you work hard towards it and keep God as the center figure. And this is going to be a beautiful journey for all of us. God bless you. Thank you for staying in. God bless.